Many of us do love books, don't we? And it is totally okay if you are someone who does not like books. Liking books is not a requirement to be a Unitarian Universalist in any way, shape, or form. We can get information from all sorts of places. And if you do like books, you probably like comic books, or audiobooks, or fiction books, or nonfiction books, or stories, or facts, or pictures and graphs. They are one way that we learn and grow, one way that we try to divine some partial glimmer of the light of truth and understanding. So it is fitting to give books to our children to encourage them in their own free and responsible searches for truth and meaning. Another way we can encourage our children in their free and responsible searches for truth and meaning is to share with them our own searches, to talk to them about what we are doing and what we are learning, how we continue to grow into adulthood. I had this idea when I was growing up that you hit a certain age and stopped. That is not the case. We can do this with the children in our lives over a meal or in the car. Oh my gosh, car conversations are the best. And here at UUI, we do something called a mailbox ministry that groups or committees or teams or chalice circles can sign up for to share something like this with our children collectively. Every time that a group at UUI signs up for the mailbox ministry, you are widening the circle of our multi-generational community by sharing what you feel matters with the kiddos, by demonstrating to them that you don't become an adult and stop. And you get a chance to model for them. But here's the thing. If we want to share our own searches for truth and meaning as a way of encouraging the kids in their searches, then we actually do have to be engaging in a search for truth and meaning ourselves. In fact, this is a hallmark of our faith as Unitarian Universalists, that we covenant with one another to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This is the fourth of our 8 principles that we share. And in the proposed revision of Article 2, which I'm going to talk more about next week, that language is in there. It says that we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And what I love about this new revision is that it doesn't stop there, because then it says, we embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Let me tell you, this promise to one another that we will engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, that we will learn from each other, and that we will embrace our differences and commonalities, this is not easy, beloveds. In fact, it can be one of the hardest things asked of us as Unitarian Universalists. So what I want to do is I want to break it down just a little bit and then talk a little bit more about the impact it'll have on us. Okay, so breaking it down. We covenant to learn from one another. This means we listen to each other, that we will share our stories with each other so that we can learn together. That means that we bring an attitude of humble curiosity to our interactions with each other. And learning often brings discomfort. And so part of learning from each other is that we will sit in that discomfort and allow ourselves to grow and change from it, rather than just resist it because it is new or different. I want to jump to the word search next, because that's the active verb in the sentence, and everything else is kind of explaining or expanding on that. We covenant to learn from one another in our searches. We covenant to search together for truth and meaning. Notice that search is present tense. It's not past tense. We are actively looking. We don't just expect truth and meaning to appear to us out of nowhere, though that does happen sometimes. No, we are actively looking for it. We are engaged in a search. So what will our searches be? They will be free. This means that we're not going to tell you what to believe. We won't tell you what sources you have to use or be limited to in your search. You can use poetry, the Bible, your own life experience, the teachings of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Rig Veda, Dr. Seuss, music, art, science, the cycles of the moon and the solar system, and so much more. We won't tell you exactly what you can use in your search or how to search, because the journey, the search itself, is in many ways more important than the destination. Oh, but we will provide help. Don't fear. We will offer suggestions, readings, worship services, adult religious education courses, book groups, writing groups. We don't abandon you without resources in your search for truth and meaning, but we won't limit you either, with one exception. Because our searches also should be responsible. This means that as we search, we can't just use any old source. Responsible means accountable in this context. When we are engaging in a responsible, accountable search, we must revise our sources, our beliefs, our searching, the path that we are on when we come across something that is found to be false or harmful. So, for example, it may or may not be surprising for you to hear that 100 years ago, many Unitarians and Universalists believed in eugenics. Eugenics is the study of selective breeding of human beings to weed out undesirable characteristics. This was science at its finest, many Unitarian and Universalists believed. Until we gradually realized that just because science can do something doesn't mean that it should. And we realized the racism inherent in what we thought was a progressive idea. Engaging in a responsible search means that we allow ourselves, our sources, and our searches to be held accountable to others and to our principles and to our values. We can no longer use sources that we have found to be false or harmful. Okay, so that's free and responsible. So what are we searching for? Well, for one, we are searching for truth, lowercase t, truth. We don't believe that there is just one capital T truth out there, but instead believe that we each have our own truths, and that all stories and all lives have truth in them. Truth with a lowercase t is out there waiting for us to find it should we choose to search for it. But the lack of one singular capital T truth doesn't mean that anything and everything is true. Indeed, one of the biggest and wrongest things about our faith is the misconception that you can believe whatever you want and be a Unitarian Universalist. You can't. We cannot believe in something that is oppressive. We cannot believe in something that strips people and populations from their rights, from their autonomy, their inherent worth and dignity. As Unitarian Universalists, we cannot believe something that says one group of people is inherently better than another. These things, for us, cannot be true. Going back to the eugenics example, when people realized that this truth they believed was actually oppressive, when they recognized the harm that it caused, they moved away from it. It was no longer a truth they could believe. And lastly, in our breakdown, in addition to truth, we are searching for meaning. We believe searching for meaning is a human endeavor. This is what we do in worship every Sunday. We scoop worth. That's what the word worship means, to scoop worth. We find that which is meaningful. As Viktor Frankl wrote in that most excellent and timeless classic book, Man's Search for Meaning, life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Alfred Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. The greatest task for any person is to find meaning in their life. And often, meaning is not only found, but it is something that we have the capacity to make. And we have the capacity to make it together. This is what it means to collectively engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And then we work to embrace our differences and our commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. We get that my search may lead me in a different place than your search, and that is okay. You like jelly with your peanut butter sandwiches, and I like bananas and honey. That is okay. Both are just fine. You find truth and meaning in theism, and I find it in humanism, and that is okay. You find it in art, and I find it in science, and that is okay. In fact, these aren't just okay. They're pretty awesome. It's wonderful. Tell me more about your life and your values and how your beliefs and experiences have shaped who you are today. Share your truth with me, with each other, and we have the capacity to deepen our connections with one another and to grow. This fourth principle calls us to engage together in our searches for truth and meaning, to share our experiences and let the experience of others impact us, challenge us, give us opportunities for growth. So as Unitarian Universalists, we are actively, constantly learning, growing, allowing ourselves to be challenged, allowing our beliefs of what we thought was true to be challenged. We're encouraged to sit in the discomfort of our former beliefs as we develop new understanding, new truths, and revise our journey based on this new information and understanding that we have. And to respect that our journeys are different and we're not all going to end up in the same place. Beloveds, this can be exhausting. It is not easy to be a Unitarian Universalist. I remember a time when a board member of a congregation came to me and shared that he was resigning from the board and ending his membership with the congregation. He'd been a member for about 5 years and brought a really unique perspective and was generally one of the go-to people at the church. He said, "Being a UU is too hard. It's too hard to always be explaining it to people. But mostly," he said, "it asks too much of me. It is too hard to constantly be looking at what I believe and evaluating it and reevaluating it. It is too hard," he said, "to be growing all the time. I am exhausted. I am going back to a church," he told me, "where I can just sit there and not be challenged to grow or to be better or to examine what I believe." Our faith is demanding. It truly is. A century ago, Louis Fisher, dean of the Rider School of Divinity in Chicago, a Universalist seminary, wrote, "Universalists are often asked to tell where they stand. The only true answer to give this question is that we do not stand at all. We move." This is true for us as a faith tradition, the living tradition, printed on our hymnals. If you look on the gray hymnal, the living tradition. living tradition, always growing, changing. It's true for our faith tradition, and it is true for us as individuals. There is comfort to be found in a creedal faith. Certain things are set out as to what you should believe, where you should find capital T truth, but not in Unitarian Universalism. We expect you to figure it out for yourself, not by yourself, mind you, but for yourself. And yeah, it gets really tiring sometimes. And sometimes we do need to take a break and to rest and let ourselves just assimilate everything that we have learned, everything that we have been challenged by, all the growth experiences that we've been had. We have to take time to process them sometimes. And then, maybe with encouragement of others, maybe with inspiration born of something someone shared, and darn it all, we find ourselves at it again. This is maybe the hardest and most rewarding part of being a Unitarian Universalist. We recognize that as we told our kids, each of us inside has the power to think and ask questions and make choices that will help us do wonderful and exciting things in our lives. And that we do not stay still, but that this living tradition we share calls us to move, to journey together, to encourage each other on our free and responsible searches for truth and meaning. It is difficult. It can be tiring. And it is glorious and exciting. May it be so. May we make it so.